And now it's time for one of our regular series of interviews, and I'm delighted to be joined in the Llanelli Talking newspaper studio today by Bede MacGowan. Bede is the editor of the Llanelli Star. Welcome, Bede.
Nice to be here, Robert.
Good. We're very grateful to you as a newspaper, as the Llanelli Star, because all the work that you do for the newspaper helps us to produce the news items for this programme. So on behalf of the listeners of the Talking newspaper, I'd like to thank you in the first place for allowing us that privilege to use your news items in the paper, and to tell you that it's a highly valued service by the listeners of the Talking newspaper, and we're very grateful to you.
Very glad to be of help, and I should also just say I think it's great what you guys do with the service you provide.
Great, thank you, Bede. Lots of people may have seen the name and heard about Bede MacGowan, editor of the Llanelli Star, and it's a big responsible job here in Llanelli. Tell us a little bit about Bede MacGowan. Where do you come from, and where are you going?
Well, as you can probably tell from my accent, Robert, and I think anyway, I'm not from around these parts. I was born in London,
right,
and grew up in Sussex. So I stayed in England for around 30 years, and then I moved down to Wales 7 years ago, and first to Swansea, where I worked on the Evening Post, and on the news desk up there for about 3 years, and then down to Llanelli in 2009. I took over at the Star in February 2009. Excellent. Very proud moment for me. Indeed.
You're not the first Londoner, so to speak, to edit the newspaper, actually, because Charlie Braham many years ago, and Charlie was an evacuee during the war, and he came down here to the Brindley Jones family, and Charlie was editor of the newspaper for a while. So there is an association with having Londoners as editors of the Llanelli Star.
Good to hear it. Well, yeah. I didn't know that, actually. I did meet Charlie briefly at our centenary celebrations, which happened not long after I took over on the Star. It's good to know that I'm not the first.
Yeah. So how did you get into this world of journalism then?
I was not interested in it at all while I was growing up, and in fact I went to university in Leeds and studied Latin and Spanish, and I hadn't even thought about it. But I found myself living with a photographer for the Yorkshire Evening Post, and her boyfriend, who came around regularly, was a reporter on the same newspaper, and they were just so enthusiastic and happy with their jobs, and they literally loved every day going to work. It rubbed off on me, and when I left university, I thought, that's what I want to do too, and I went off and did a fast track training down in Portsmouth, and started on the Western Gazette. It's my first newspaper.
And the Western Gazette, if you remind me, that's Yeovil way, is it, or is it?
It's based in Yeovil, covers all of Dorset and Somerset.
Right, so that was your first job then,
and it was a tough start, very tough start. They put you on a patch and gave you an edition from day one. You had to find the front page from the very moment you set through the door. It was your responsibility. I was covering Dorchester, and it was a fairly quiet news area, and it was a very tough place to learn.
Yeah.
I think it served me well.
Yeah, it's a good grounding in journalism then. And,
definitely, and I was hauled over the coals after 6 months and told I wasn't really good enough and I needed to pull my finger out, or that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
So I managed to turn it around.
Good. Oh, well done. As you say, and what age were you then when you started off?
Later than most, I guess. I would have come out of university at 24, and it took me a couple of years to get going, so I probably didn't start until 26.
Yeah. I ask you the question now that nobody likes to answer. And how old are you now?
I'm 37 now.
Right, so you're not even 40 yet, so you've achieved quite a lot along the way.
Yeah. I was pleased to be. Yeah, I think it's moved quite quickly, but I think that's the way nowadays in journalism. People tend to be moved through quite quickly.
Yeah. So from Western Gazette, you went.
I went to London, back to London then, because I had a young son on the way. So I moved to obviously be with the mother of my son, and we lived in South London. I worked on the News Shopper newspaper, which was actually a great place to work. It hasn't got a very prestigious name as to many people, it sounds like a sort of freebie you pick up in a supermarket, but it is actually a great newspaper. It was delivered free, but that meant it had a lot of freedom in the stories it could write, and it wasn't too dependent on having to make sales.
Yeah.
Which was, of course, that was fun for a reporter to be able to write stories that interested them rather than necessarily they had to sell.
Yeah. So new shopper, and then where then?
Then from there it was down to Wales.
Right.
We moved down here to...
You found your true path in life then.
Yes. We wanted to get away from London.
Yeah.
Had enough of the lifestyle up there, and we had a young family to bring up. My wife, her parents live in Abergavenny.
Right.
So we decided to move down this way.
Right.
And haven't looked back.
Good. And it was at the Evening Post then you first started in the area?
Yeah, I worked as a reporter covering Neath Port Talbot, and I did a year or two on there. Then I was on to News Desk, again covering the districts. I covered Carmarthenshire and Neath Port Talbot for the Post, and then from there it was down to Llanelli.
Yeah, it's a big geographic sweep that, isn't it? Because you covering the districts is a challenging job, because you're covering territory from Carmarthen, Llanelli, all these points west, and the sort of eastern arm of it as well. Yeah.
And we obviously in the old days we used to have offices out in Neath Port Talbot, and I think a few more in Carmarthenshire. There was one in Ammanford. I think. So it was trickier trying to control operations from a central base like that. It wasn't.
Right.
It's not ideal, but it's the future of newspapers.
Yeah. And of course you were lucky enough then to get the job of editor of the Llanelli Star.
Yeah, and I have probably the proudest moment in my life. I wondered if it was too big a step up, and I'd only been in journalism probably 7 years, so it felt like a big step. But I was lucky enough to get the job. Very happy day for me, and I've really enjoyed every second of it since then.
And they say timing is everything, Bede, because was it 2009 you joined, and that is actually the 100th anniversary of the Llanelli Star, which was founded by Brynley Jones in 1909.
It was. So I walked into a very important year for the paper. It was a baptism of fire in many ways, but there was advantages to it in that I needed to find out a lot about the history of the paper and of the town very quickly, so that I knew what I was talking about and had a real feeling for the area. So it in many ways, although it gave us it was a very hectic year with a lot to do. It was a good grounding, and it gave me the chance to really sort of research the paper and the town and the area. Good.
So since you started as editor, then what are there any big achievements that you want to pinpoint, highlight?
Well, I was very happy with our coverage during the centenary year of the centenary itself. We produced a supplement which I think went down very well in the town. It seemed to hit the mark, which was very, very gratifying for me. I think we sold out that week, which doesn't happen often these days. Yeah. And we had a big centenary celebration, which I helped to organise, and it was a proud moment to be there on the night, and I think everyone really enjoyed themselves. I was very happy with that. Since then, there's been the Community Star Awards, which, again, this is what the local paper is all about, really, celebrating the positives of the community, and we've got more of those coming up, actually.
So it's like community champions, basically, that people who've done things volunteering, or they've...
That's right. Charity champions, community champions, people who've shown extraordinary bravery or had to overcome obstacles in life, and they deserve to be recognised. That's what the awards are all about. So
the next awards come up, I think, on June the 15th today, and
that's right. And we've got some very worthy nominations as we did 2 years ago. They run every 2 years, these, and there's some really moving stories in there. And as there was last time around, there will be some surprises on the night. It should be an emotional occasion.
Good, and of course you've got the night, and of course things will be reflected from the night back into the paper then for the following weeks. And
we'll have all the winners and all their stories, of course.
The Llanelli as a town, obviously, it's going through another period of change. I mean, you've got the Eastgate development, you've got a new theatre coming along, the change of Llanelli Library and so on, and all positive stuff, you think?
Yeah, I do think it's all positive. The town has obviously had some quite major problems over the last few years, town centre that is. with the loss of the shops. And I think the reality is you only have to walk through the town centre these days and feel a slight sense of disappointment at how things have turned out. And that's why I think Eastgate has come at just the right time. Everyone hopes it does the trick. Obviously, we won't know for sure until it's all up and running. But I think the town certainly needed something, and they've tried something a bit different with the leisure. I do think it's probably the best way forward. There's no going back from Trostra now and the out-of-town retail parks. So I do feel very positive about it, and we'll find out this time next year if the positivity it pays off.
Yeah, in terms of the sort of big stories current at the moment, I'm guessing that the biggest of them all is probably Prince Philip Hospital, is it?
Yeah, and it's been the big story for this year and some years, many years now in some ways, because the current threat to the A&E department isn't something that's come out of the blue. There's been a feeling that the hospital's been slowly losing services over many years, but I think now is really sort of crunch time, in that once A&E goes, is it really a hospital still? For some people, a hospital means an A&E
being able to turn up there at any time.
And emergency treatment. So I think this is a crucial fight. I think the town's done itself proud in the way it's approached it. 24,000 signatures on the petitions, and 500 people plus in Cardiff last week. So I think we couldn't have done more to get our point across to the health board and to the government. Whether or not it's going to do the trick, we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully they've listened. I think I've been proud to be part of that.
Yeah. Well, I think you deserve to be praised on that. I mean, the Star's putting a lot of effort into that, and fingers crossed we might get some result out of it. And well, Bede, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and perhaps you'll come back in and talk to us again sometime in the future and let us know what are the big stories happening in Llanelli and so on. And
I'd be pleased to come back any time. Thanks very much for having me, Robert.
Thank you very much, BedeMacGowan. Thank you.